I'm a little hunk of fat. Nobody knows where I'm at. I've got 4 legs and I sit on a log. I'm a frog, I'm a frog, I'm a frog. Croak, croak, ribbit, ribbit, splash. Now, of course, you guys know that we love to have fun here in the studio while we're creating awesome arts and crafts. Now, today is no exception. We're going to give this awesome little frog its own little water pond. Now, I've done this in the past before, and it's just really fun to be able to kind of upgrade that video and just make it next level. Give it another piece of content for you guys to enjoy here on my art channel. Now, we're starting off this project with a little bit of 2-part epoxy from Flynn's sister. Affiliated code below if you want to get a discount, if you're looking to get into something like this in the future on your own. Now we're going to use this 2-part epoxy regular set, and we're going to mix in a little bit of Tim Holtz alcohol inks by drops into this mixing cup. It's just a disposable mixing cup. I don't have any large medicine cups or anything like that, so we're just going to use this disposable, get it in, get it out, and get this project created here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a slow pour, but we're still going to get a lot of bubbles, and I really absolutely do not care if we get bubbles throughout the night, because this is regular set epoxy. It will set up naturally on its own, but we will pop a few bubbles throughout the process, just kind of expedite things a little bit. But again, we're not going out of our way to avoid bubbles. So one of the very first things that I'll do with my popsicle stick before I start the actual water feature pour is I'll go ahead and coat the actual frog himself in the same color of liquid. We want to simulate that the frog is just coming up out of the water. Maybe it's just peeking up out of the water at a predator. You'll see here soon. A predator coming out of the water or something like that. It's supposed to be like just him just is accenting the existing water feature that we're creating. He's cool, he's awesome, but the water feature really just upgrades the overall diorama that we're creating for the Goliath Birdeater Tarantula. The frog isn't supposed to steal the show, but it is just supposed to be something small to where when you come up on top of the actual diorama, it's just really cool. So we're going to go ahead and pour a little bit on the bottom of this little pond that I've created. Now, if you want to see how I created the actual clay sculpture and the paint and the rock formation and all of the actual leaves, all the leaves in this project were hand sculpted from scratch. Pretty cool. So we'll go ahead and hit it with a heat gun as well as a torch just to kind of get that base coat on the very bottom warmed up a little bit, and then we're going to start to slow pour it into this. Again, we're not going out of our way to avoid bubbles completely, but if you do a slow pour, a lot of times it's more enjoyable. Let's be honest. The slower you go, you get to draw out the overall process a little bit and just have more fun taking your time making this piece of art. Now, I will go ahead and before I fill up the water feature puddle all at one time, I'm going to go ahead and go over the outskirts of the bowl or the pond, as it were, to give it kind of a slick texture. I plan to probably spray paint the overall top of the diorama to kind of lock a lot of these things in. But a lot of times I'll use actual like a Mod Podge water lock-in spray to kind of seal up all of the dirt and the flocking into position. And nothing is ever really set in stone, right? A customer could always go in and change the way the dirt is formed or change things around a little bit if they want to. That's why when I do ship this, I'll probably include a few packets of the flocking that I use, as well as the homemade flocking dirt that I created. Remember, none of the stuff in this project is actually organic material, except for these 2 little acorns that I'm sealing up inside the epoxy. Those are the only 2 things, and maybe a few little sprigs of dried leaves that we're going to put just on top of the little water feature, but they will be inside the epoxy. It's not going to be accessible. It's not going to be out in the open because we are going to be shipping this internationally. We're not dealing with organics overseas, right? We're just not doing that. There's so many regulations and rules, and we just don't want to go through that hassle, right? So we're going to go ahead and go around the actual frog itself, trying to make sure it gets around the front legs where he's kind of like just sitting there in position. And just remember that he is actually glued to the rock formation, and he's not going anywhere. So because we actually glued him the day before, we don't have to worry about his smooth on, smooth cast 320 casted body floating to the top of the epoxy because he is lighter than the dense epoxy that we're pouring into the puddle or little pond that he's sitting in. So right now I'm literally just pouring the dregs or the leavings of my cup into this little diorama puddle here. We're going to scrimp the bottle here, so just really just take your time. Let this little dribble of epoxy just kind of like cascade over wherever you want to. Now, the next day after this is fully cured, I'll probably come in with a little bit of UV resin over the very high spots. I might even feature that at the end of this video as some bonus material. We'll see how it goes. I don't want the video to run too long, but I also want to include as much educational, fun, interactive material as possible. So here you can see it's really looking great, but it's very, very full of bubbles. Now, I said that I wasn't going to be afraid of bubbles, and we're not. Don't stress it. Don't worry about it. If you left this, because it is a regular set epoxy, overnight, a lot of those bubbles would pop on their own. But what we're going to do is we are going to heat it up a little bit with the actual heat gun, as well as pop some of those micro bubbles with the torch. And as the epoxy just heats up before we let it go, let it rest overnight, it helps that epoxy kind of loosen up a little bit, and some of those air bubbles and pockets will come to the surface. Now, as I work through this, focus on the bottom right hand corner of the puddle. I'm gonna leave that in. Puddle. The bottom right hand corner of the puddle. There is a leaf that I sculpted from scratch, and it is at the bottom of this puddle, right? So you'll see little large bubbles come up to the surface and literally pop. Now, not the micro bubbles that look very opaque or full of bubbles. Kind of, it's keeping it from being transparent. So you'll see that pop up. There's one right there. Look at it, right hand corner. And it's going to pop in just a second. You'll see another one as we run through the end of the process. I'm using a little bit of latte, fancy latte, Tim Holtz alcohol ink, and I'm just going to dribble 2 or 3 drops, maybe 4, around the kind of outskirts of the actual water feature diorama. And that's going to give it a little bit of like a top coat film. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to grab a few little sprigs of just little pieces of leaves that I broke off from real dried leaves, and we're going to sink this into the actual 2-part epoxy. I'm going to spread these out just with my finger, and I'm going to cover them in epoxy and sink them a little bit, and it's going to simulate there's just a bunch of debris in the pond, and it makes the pond feel like it's more part of the overall diorama around itself instead of just plain water in a hole. You want to make it blend in just like the frog is trying to blend in from the Predator, Goliath Birdeater tarantula. We just want to make sure that it blends with the overall diorama and it's one piece of art and not standing alone and just draws the eye too much. Gonna go ahead and hit this with a heat gun again, and then we'll cover up all those little leaves, and then we're going to let it rest overnight. I will continue the video here into the UV resin, kind of ripple effect, but we're not going to go overboard with that. Alright, so as we kind of enter into the end times of the video, we're going to go into the UV resin as well as do a little bit of glamour shots and showcases before it rolls into the next day. I even may, as a surprise, include what it would look like with the Goliath Birdeater on the project as well. There will be a little micro clip at the very end of the video, but you gotta stay tuned to see it. I have a little frog. I have a little frog. His name is Tiny Tim. I put him in the bathtub to see if he could swim. He drank up all the water, he gobbled up the soap, and when he tried to talk, he had a little bubble in his throat. Oh, love it. So as you saw with those little clips there, we just used the UV resin directly out of the container, and we went ahead and hit it immediately on the project with the UV light. It cures up, it's easy, it's ready to go. Now, as we roll through these glamour shots, look how absolutely awesome this little bad boy looks. And of course, we're going to give you a little snippet of what it looks like on the actual project with the diorama Goliath Birdeater on top of him. He's going to be cowering, the Predator is out and about, and he just popped his head out of the pond. It's like, oh my goodness, what have I just swam into? I really do hope you guys enjoyed this very fun, laid-back commentary over this awesome little project. Although it only ran about 10 minutes long overall, it's just absolutely fun to pull out some 2-part epoxy from Flynn's sister and create a water feature effect, which we don't get to do very often. It turned out absolutely great, and I'm looking forward to finishing this project and shipping it off to Germany. I will catch you guys on the next awesome video content, whether it's a painting, a diorama, or something in between. It's always art related. So make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.